Now let me talk about strategies and payoffs in this game. So far we have been computing probabilities by assuming that they can see each other's signal, even though in the model we assume that they can't. We are doing this at the beginning because it will come in handy. These probabilities will come in handy later. So now let's talk about the payoffs of each juror. So we assume that both jurors preferences are identical. So jurors preferences are identical. Okay. And each juror gets payoff 0 if defendant is acquitted irrespective of his guilty or innocent status. Okay. So if the defendant gets acquitted, if the defendant is not convicted, then each juror gets payoff 0 irrespective of whether the defendant is actually guilty or innocent. Okay. They get payoff 3 if guilty defendant is convicted, okay, and -2 if innocent defendant gets convicted. Okay, so basically the jurors worry about the guilty or innocent status of the defendant when the person is getting convicted, right? So there they care really about whether the person is guilty or innocent. So if they're convicting a guilty defendant, then they get a positive payoff. But if they get if they're convicting an innocent defendant, then they get a negative payoff. So they would rather let a guilty defendant go scot-free rather than convict an innocent defendant. Okay, so that's the payoff structure. Obviously they would like the innocent defendant to be acquitted rather than get convicted, but and also they would like the guilty defendant to be convicted rather than be acquitted, but they would like the guilty defendant to be acquitted rather than an innocent defendant be convicted. Okay, so that's how their preference ranking is, okay, which is sort of reasonable to assume. Now let's talk about how a individual defendant can get convicted or acquitted. So that depends on the court's rule about the votings by the jurors. So basically court says the jurors decide, the jury decides whether the person will be acquitted and convicted. On top of that, basically the court says that they have to vote, right? So they have to vote, and there is a voting rule which will decide. So court specifies voting rule that determines conviction or acquittal of defendant as a function of each jurors decision. So each juror can decide whether to vote for a conviction or acquittal, and then there is, and the court specifies a voting rule beforehand, which says that how to aggregate the voting decisions of each individual juror. So we will assume, unanimity rule. What is this unanimity rule? Basically, the decisions would have to be both, so the rule applies to conviction. So basically, both jurors have to say convict for the defendant to get convicted. If any juror says acquittal, then the defendant will be let go. Okay, so they have to agree on conviction for the person to be convicted. There has to be unanimity. Okay. Now, so this is the voting rule that is announced beforehand. Each juror gets the signal, capital G or capital I. He doesn't know what the signal of the other juror is. He has to make a decision whether to vote convict or acquittal, given the unanimity voting rule. Okay, so that's the play of the game. Now notice, given that it's unanimity, your voting matters only when the opponent is voting for conviction. Okay, if the opponent is not voting for conviction, it doesn't matter what you vote for, right? So your voting decision should take into account the fact that your voting matters only when your vote is pivotal, right? So deciding optimal voting decision needs to consider only the event when voting by the juror matters or is pivotal. What is pivotal? Pivotal means the event where a voter's decision actually has an impact on the outcome. Okay, so suppose it's a unanimity rule. So if the opponent already is voting acquittal, then your voting decision is not pivotal, because whatever your voting decision is, whether guilty or acquittal, the defendant will be acquitted, because the jurors don't agree on guilty, on conviction. Okay, so your voting will only matter, meaning that your voting will actually change the decision only in the event that the other juror has voted for conviction. If the other voter has voted for conviction, then if you also vote for conviction, then there is agreement, and then the person will be convicted. If you vote for acquittal, then the person will be acquitted. Okay, so your voting decision becomes the deciding factor. Okay, so that's what it means to be pivotal. Okay, so imagine in the actual elections, suppose there is a tie if you don't vote, then in that case your voting decision is really critical, because then whoever you vote for becomes the winner of the election, right? So you become pivotal only when there is a tie. In other cases you are not pivotal. Well, you can be pivotal when when one of the parties is one vote behind, even then you can be pivotal by making it a tie, but otherwise not. So in most cases you will not be pivotal in an election. In this specific context of jury decisions with two juries, with two jurors in using a unanimity rule, your voting decision is pivotal only when the opponent votes for conviction. Okay? Otherwise not. So let's keep that in mind. Now we ask, what is the equilibrium strategy of the players? What is a strategy here? Strategy is an action for every information set. Here information sets are basically signals that you get. You don't know whether the person is guilty or innocent, but you can see your own signal. So basically for every signal you have to specify whether you want to vote for conviction or acquittal, and that's the strategy. So basically your type here is your signal. In the auction case, your type was your valuation of the object, which was your private information. In jury decisions, your type is the private information that you have, which is the signal that you receive about whether the person is guilty or innocent, and therefore your strategy is contingent on your type. Okay, if you get signal capital G, you may vote one way. If you get signal capital I, you may vote another way. So for every possible signal, you have to specify what your voting decision is, and that's your strategy. Okay, so now we want to know, one question is, before we compute the equilibrium, is whether voting your information is an equilibrium strategy. So we want to ask, is voting your information an equilibrium strategy. What do I mean by voting your information? Basically, you vote for conviction if you get signal capital G, and you vote for acquittal if you get signal capital I. So basically, you reveal the information that you have through your voting decision. So you, if you get capital G, then you think that then you vote for conviction because you reveal the information that you have gotten signal capital G, and otherwise you vote for acquittal. Okay, so that's what it means to vote your information. You reveal your information through voting. The question is this actually an equilibrium strategy? Okay, the court is interested in this question because court would like people to reveal their information. Court would like the jurors to reveal their information, because that would ensure that full information gets revealed by across all the jurors, because different jurors may be paying attention to different parts of the game, and so if they reveal all the information, that will sort of be efficient in some sense. Okay. The question is, will that happen in equilibrium? Will people actually vote for conviction only when they see guilty? And in this specific example, the answer unfortunately is no. Okay, so how do I show that? I show that by showing that if voting one's information is the strategy of juror number 2, let's say, then juror number 1's best response is not to vote that way. Okay, that's how I show it, that it's not a best response if the other follows the strategy. So suppose say juror number 2 is voting her information. So suppose juror 2 is voting her information. So basically what that's mean, juror 2 votes for conviction when she gets the signal G, and votes for acquittal when she gets the signal I. Okay, what should juror 1 do? Juror 1 is, now let's bring back the pivotality argument. So juror 1's decision will only matter when juror 2 votes for conviction. correct? Only then juror 1's voting will actually decide the outcome. But when does juror 2 vote for conviction? When juror 2, based on this strategy, when juror 2 gets signal capital G, right? So conditional on juror 2 getting signal capital G, she votes for the conviction, in which case juror 1 should decide what to do. In all other cases, juror 1's decision has no bearing on the final outcome, so juror 1 is indifferent across all strategies. Okay, so only in this event should juror 1 decide what is the optimal thing to do, and therefore that could be the best response, because in all other cases is indifferent, so that strategy can be a best response in all other cases as well. Okay, so juror 1 is pivotal when juror 2 gets signal capital G, right? Because when juror 2 gets signal capital G, she votes for conviction, in which case juror 1's decision becomes important for the final outcome. Now suppose juror 1 also gets signal capital G. If he votes for, so he knows now in the event that he's pivotal, if he gets signal G, then there are 2 G signals out there, right? In the event he's pivotal, not otherwise. In the event that he's pivotal, if he gets signal G, then there are 2 G signals, in which case he really believes that with probability 9 by 10, right? We have computed before. Here, this is suppose the signal of the second guy, juror 2. So this is when juror 1 is pivotal. In the event he also gets G, he thinks that if I am pivotal, then there is a 9 by 10 chance that the person is guilty. Okay, and if juror 1 gets signal I, then there is half chance that the defendant is guilty. Okay, we'll use this information. So that's why we computed this probabilities. Okay, so if juror 1 gets signal capital G, then in the pivotal event, his expected payoff is with 9 by 10. He expects suppose with 9 by 10 he knows that the defendant is guilty. If he votes for conviction, then with 9 by 10 he'll be right, correct? So with 9 by 10 he'll be guilty and he'll get convicted, so he'll get payoff 3. But there is some chance that even with 2 capital G signal, the person may be innocent, right? In which case he'll get payoff -2. Okay, this is when he votes for conviction, when he gets signal G. Okay, so if he gets signal G, if he convicts, then this is his payoff. If he doesn't convict, then then obviously with one if he says acquittal, then the person gets acquitted, in which case everybody gets 0 payoff. So the question is this payoff greater than 0? If this payoff greater than 0, then he convicts. If this payoff is less than 0, then he doesn't convict. Okay, and clearly you see this payoff is greater than 0, so he should convict when he gets signal G, because if he gets signal G, then only in the pivotal event his decision will matter, and in the pivotal event his expected payoff is positive. Why? Because in the pivotal event the other juror would also have gotten signal G, in which case the person would be guilty with a very 90% probability, right? So if if the juror 1 votes for conviction, then the defendant will get actually convicted, and it will be the right decision with 90% chance, and it will be the wrong decision with 10% chance. And so the expected payoff is positive if he votes for conviction, if juror 1 votes for conviction. If juror 1 votes for acquittal, then the person gets acquitted, in which case both jurors get 0. So in the event that he's pivotal, juror 1 should vote for conviction if he gets the signal G. Okay, we haven't come to the decision when he gets signal I am coming to it, but in this case it is quite clear that if he gets signal G, he should vote for conviction, because he'll be voting a guilty person with 90% likelihood. Now let's come to the case when the juror 1 gets signal I. So if 1 gets I, then suppose he is voting for conviction. Okay, even then he is voting for conviction, because if he votes for acquittal, then again both parties get 0. The question is, what happens if he votes for conviction? So suppose juror 1 gets signal I. Now his voting decision matter only when the other juror had gotten signal G. So now the signals are mixed. Juror 2 has gotten signal G and you have gotten signal I. Question is, should you vote for conviction? Now if you vote for conviction, then what is the expected payoff? Expected payoff is, with probability half, you would be right. You would be voting a guilty person, in which case you get 3. And with probability half, you would get -2. This is actually positive, because this is 0.5, which is positive. So you see, even when you get signal I, you get a positive payoff if you vote for conviction, and you get 0 payoff if you vote for acquittal. Okay, and that is because you get a much higher payoff from convicting a guilty person than the loss of payoff you incur when you convict an innocent person. Okay, and that gives you that even if you are completely undecided, even if you have probability half belief that the person is guilty or innocent, even then you should convict that person. Okay, so that gives you the strategy that when the juror 2 votes his information, juror 1 votes for conviction when signal G, votes for conviction when signal I. Okay, which means that juror 1 doesn't vote his information. He always goes for conviction irrespective of his signal, as a best response to jurors' voting strategy. Okay, so that means that this answer is no, right? Because when juror follows this strategy, juror 2 follows this strategy, juror 1 follows a strategy where juror 1 always goes for conviction irrespective of signal G or I. Okay, so then the question is, what is the equilibrium strategy? You can show that the equilibrium strategy, so there are several equilibria in this game. One of the equilibrium strategy is where juror 2 votes her information and juror 1 always votes for conviction. So what is so this is, we claim that this is a Bayes-Nash equilibrium of the game. Now notice, this is exactly the set of strategies we analyzed before. So we said that suppose juror 1 votes her information, basically juror 2 votes her information. So juror 2 votes for conviction if she gets signal capital G, and votes for acquittal if she gets signal I, and juror 1 always votes for conviction for both G and I. Okay, so that we are claiming that that's a Bayes-Nash equilibrium. Now in this section, we already just analyzed the best response of juror 1 when juror 2 votes her information. Juror 1's best strategy is to indeed always vote for conviction, right? Juror 1 gets a positive payoff under signal G, gets a positive payoff under signal I when he votes for conviction, and gets payoff 0 when he votes for acquittal. So therefore he should vote for signal G, vote for conviction both for signal G as well as signal I, right? So indeed, always voting for conviction is a best response to juror 2's strategy. We have to only show the other way around. We have to show that when juror 1 always votes for conviction, juror 2's best response is to vote her information. Okay. Now, if juror 1 always votes for conviction, then juror 2 is always pivotal, correct? So juror 2 is always pivotal. Why? Because juror 1 is always voting for conviction under both signals. So no matter what the signal that the juror 1 gets, he votes for conviction. So juror 2 is always juror 2's voting decision is always the deciding factor. If juror 2 votes for conviction, then both vote for conviction, and hence the defendant goes to jail. If juror 2 doesn't vote for conviction, he votes for acquittal, then of course the defendant gets acquitted. Okay. So juror 2 becomes pivotal all the time. So juror 2 is always pivotal in this case. Okay. So basically, then juror 2 cannot condition on a specific event, a specific signal that juror 1 might get, which would make juror 2 pivotal. So basically, juror 1 only has her own information to go by. Okay. So if juror 2 gets signal capital G, what is the probability, what is the belief that juror 2 will have that the person is guilty, given that is capital G? This is basically, you can compute, because here I am not including juror 1's signal, because all events are pivotal, right? All signals, for any signal that juror 1 might get, juror 2 is pivotal, right? So therefore there is no way for juror 2 to condition on a specific signal that juror 1 might get, which will make him pivotal. Okay. He's pivotal always. So there is nothing to condition on for juror 1 signal. So the question that juror 2 asks is, what is the likelihood that the defendant is guilty if only I get signal G? Because I don't care about what juror 1 is getting, because juror 1 is always saying going for conviction. So that doesn't reveal any information. So I have only my information to go by. So if my signal is capital G, what is the likelihood that the person is guilty? Well, again, we can apply Bayes' rule. The Bayes' rule say that this is the probability of getting signal given the defendant is guilty times probability that the defendant is guilty divided by probability that the juror gets signal G. Again, if you do the computation, you will get the probability 3/4. Okay. So again, you should do it at home to check whether you get 3/4 or not. So with probability 3/4, he believes that the defendant is guilty when the juror gets signal capital G. What is the probability that the juror will think the defendant is guilty if he gets signal capital I? If you again do the computation, it will be very similar. It will be I given G times probability of G divided by probability of I, and it will be 1/4. Okay. Now if you calculate the expected payoff for conviction, for juror 2, so suppose juror 2 says convict this person when he gets signal capital G, then he'll be right 75% of the time and wrong 25% of the time. So basically, if juror 2 convicts when signal is G, then expected payoff is with 3/4 probability he'll be right and he'll get 3, and with 1/4 probability he'll get -2, and this is positive. So juror 2, he would indeed like to convict when the signal is G, because if he doesn't convict, the person will be acquitted and then he'll get 0. So therefore his best response is to convict when the signal is G. Now suppose if juror 2 convicts when signal is I, then what is the expected payoff? The expected payoff is now only with a 25% chance he is right, so he gets 3, and with 75% chance he convicts the wrong person, and so he gets -2. So now the payoff is 3/4 minus twice of 3/4, so that's basically -3/4, so that's negative. So therefore juror 2's voting decision in response, as a best response to juror 1's voting decision to always vote for conviction, is convict if signal is G and acquit if signal is I, because if juror 1 convicts when signal is I, then the payoff is negative as opposed to 0 if he acquits, right? So basically this becomes the best response of juror 2. Notice this is basically same thing as saying juror 2 votes her information. So votes for conviction if the signal is G and acquittal when signal is I. So this is the best response of juror 2 when juror 1 always votes for conviction. We have already analyzed here that when juror 2 votes her information, juror 1's best strategy is to always vote for conviction, right? So then in this case, this becomes a mutual best response. So then this is indeed a Bayes-Nash equilibrium, okay? So when juror 1 always votes a conviction, this analysis shows that juror 2 should vote her information, and the previous analysis showed that when juror 2 votes her information, juror 1 should always vote for conviction. Okay, so in this equilibrium, you see that one of the guys don't reveal his information. So specifically, juror 1 doesn't reveal his information; he always votes for conviction. So this is, in some sense, an inefficient equilibrium. Okay, so let me stop here. In the next class, we will talk about some other applications of Bayes-Nash equilibrium, and that will be the end of the course. Thank you.